ॐ वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा गुरवे सर्वलोकानां भिषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। नारायणं पद्मभुवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्रपराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमथास्य शिष्यं श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यं तं तोटकं वार्तिककारमन्यान् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। अपारकरुणा सिन्धुं ज्ञानदं शान्तरूपिणं श्रीचन्द्रशेखरगुरुं प्रणमामि मुदान्वहम्। यत्कृपालेशमात्रेण पुमान् पूर्णः प्रजायते तं वन्दे ब्रह्मविद्धुर्यं सद्गुरुं चन्द्रशेखरम्। संसारसागरनिमग्नजनोद्दिधीर्षुः यो वातरच्छिवनृसिंहगुरुच्छलेन जाढ्यान्धकारहरणं करुणासमुद्रं तं दक्षिणास्य मनिषं हृदि भावयामि। सदात्मध्याननिरतं विषयेभ्यः पराङ्मुखम् नौमि शास्त्रेषु निष्णातं चन्द्रशेखरभारतीम्। साक्षात्कृतं दयानन्दं परमार्थस्वरूपिणं तत्त्वज्ञानप्रशास्तारं प्रणतोऽस्मि परं पदम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्तगोचरं तमगोचरम्
सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्तगोचरं
सिद्धान्तगोचरं
तमगोचरम्
तमगोचरम्
गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्।
गोविन्दं
गोविन्दं परमानन्दं
परमानन्दं
सद्गुरुं
सद्गुरुं
प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्।
प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्।
अहङ्कारादिदेहान्तान् बन्धान् अज्ञानकल्पितान्
अहङ्कारादिदेहान्तान् बन्धान् अज्ञानकल्पितान्
अहङ्कारादिदेहान्तान्
स्वस्वरूपावबोधेन मोक्तुमिच्छामुमुक्षुता
स्वस्वरूपावबोधेन
स्वस्वरूपामोक्षामं
मोक्तुमिच्छामुमुक्षुता
मोक्षता
मुमुक्षुत्वम् अथवा मुमुक्षुता, the status or the being, the desirous of moksha, freedom, which is the last sadhana of the sadhana chatushtaya sampatti. Last means preparatory means. Among the four the qualifications, the last one is mumukshutvam. And we saw this shloka in the last class. Beginning with ahankara up to deha. All these bandhan, they are bondage, bandhakatva, because they bind a person with the sharira, stula sharira, annamaya kosha, beginning with annamaya kosha up to anandamaya kosha, up to vijnanamaya kosha plus anandamaya kosha. Bind. Kosha, the word meaning koshavatta achadakatvat. Like a sword. A sword is covered by the kabat, the sheath, the cover, sheath. Similarly, Atma is as though covered. Atma, which is Shuddha, which is always pure, always it is free. It is as it is covered. You cannot say it is covered, as though covered. As though covered by these koshas, the five koshas, beginning with Anandamaya, and because of which there is Abhimana with these koshas, that brings about the limitation, the seeming limitations of Atma. That is Ajnana Kalpita. Therefore, wanting to be free from this Kalpita Bandha, which is bondage, which is not real, which is Kalpita, which is imagined on the Atma, that is only by Bodha, Swarupa Avabodha, by knowing the Swarupa, the nature of oneself. So that desire to know oneself, which is the desire to know oneself, understanding the reality, the truth of oneself. That is what moksha is. Desire to be free from moksha, which is in the form of knowing the swarupa, the nature of oneself. And because oneself is bound, as it were, by this ahankara, etc. So that is the meaning which we saw mumukshita. And we were reading the Vyakyanam. And here the commentator, he quoted what is ahankara, the beautiful definition. Acharya here, referring to the shlokas of the Vivekachudamani itself, and then says, Chitta pratipalana upetam antakaranam ahankara. Antakaranam, the mind. which is endowed with Chaitanyam, which is reflected consciousness. That is Ahankara. That is one way of defining Ahankara. Antakaranam is Indriyam, Antarindriyam. It is also an Indriya. It is only Antarindriya in which there is reflection of Atma Chaitanyam. And therefore the sense of individuality comes. The Chaitanyam consciousness, which is all pervading, which cannot be limited by any upadhi, which cannot be limited by anything. Now it is as though limited by this antakaranam, the antarindriyam. In antarindriyam, there is reflection of this Chaitanyam, Brahma Chaitanyam. And therefore there is sense of individuality, that is ahankaraha. So this is one way of defining ahankaraha savigneyaha iti. Another way of defining ahankara is bhokta. Bhokta jivaha ahankaraha anandamaya koshanama bhokta jivaha ahankaraha. When the jiva is identified with annamaya, pranamaya, manomaya, vijnanamaya, vijnanamaya kosha represents vijnanam, knowledge. Knowledge or the other words we can say the sense of doing, doer. The Vijnanamaya Kosha being identified Vijnanamaya Kosha, a person has the sense of Aham Karta, I am the doer. I am the doer, I am the knower, Aham Bhok, I am Aham Karta, Aham Jnata iti. With Anandamaya Kosha, because it is Ananda experience, therefore Aham Bhokta iti, I am the enjoyer. Identified with Anandamaya Kosha. Anandamaya Kosha Abhimana. We have Abhimana with the different koshas, different times. So with this Annamaya Kosha, we have got Abhimanam during waking time, waking hours. In Sushupti, deep sleep, we don't have this Tadatmyam, the Abhimana identification with the Stula Shariram, but we have Abhimana with the Anandamaya Kosha, where we experience Ananda in deep sleep. How do we know? After we wake up, we recollect and we say, I slept very well. I don't know anything. It was blissful. That's what Anandamaya Kosha. Similarly, when you are thinking, it means you are thinking about something, then you are identifying yourself with Manomaya Kosha. Similarly, when you feel thirsty, hungry, etc., then Pranamaya Kosha. So, therefore, Ahankara can be defined in two ways. Antakaranam, in which the Chaitanyam is reflected, that Antakaranam is Ahankara, or the Jivaha, who is the enjoyer when he has Tadatmya Buddhi with Anandamaya Kosha, that Bhokta is Ahankaraha. Both are, in fact. So, Ahankaraha is Karta iti Abhimanaha Ahankaraha. Bhokta iti Abhimanaha pi Ahankaraha. And Swatma Nirupanam, one Grantha is a Prakana Grantha. There Acharya says, Suptikatais Sukha Leshaihi Abhimanute Sukhi Bhavami iti Anandamaya Koshana Na Sohankaraha Katam Bhavet Atma. In the deep sleep state, the person experiences Ananda. And therefore he says, Aham Sukhi Bhavami. I was I was happy, enjoying deep sleep. So the person was completely unaware of the external world. So therefore, Suptigata is the one who has entered into the sleep, deep sleep, not dream. Gada Nidra it is. There it is Sukha, Sukha Lesha. There is a Lesha of the Sukha. The Sukham, it is not total, it is a Lesha. It means it is Avidya, Vidyaya Avrata Brahmanandasya, Brahmananda. Brahma which is Ananda. But Brahmananda is not experienced. It is not that the experience in that state, but it is a lesha. Because avidya is a person deep place, he says, I don't know anything, I slept blissfully. I don't know. That is ajnanam, ignorance. Sukha lesha. Therefore, the person says, Aham sukhi, iti abhimanam karoti, I'm happy, I don't know anything. Iti, there is tadatmyam, abhimana, identification with this anandamaya kosha. That is agankara. How can that be atma? Cannot be atma. So Ahankara cannot be Atma iti. In Swarupa Nirupanam iti Pakarana Grantha, in that Acharya says. So therefore Ahankara, two definitions were given. So you can remember that is Chidabasaha is Ahankara. Chit, Chaitanyam, which reflected in the Antakaranam. So that is Ahankara. Or Jivaha, Bhokta. Bhokta is Ahankara. In other words, Karta Ahankaraha, Bhokta Ahankaraha. Chit Pratipalana Upetam Antakaranam Ahankaraha, as given in the Vivekachudamani itself by Shankaracharya. And Bhokta Jivaha Ahankaraha. This is Ahankara. The sense of individuation, that is Ahankara. Atma, which is all pervading, now it is that there arises the sense of individuation due to avidya, ignorance. Ignorance is because of ignorance, there is tadatmya buddhi. There is abhimana with the shariram or the kosha. Shariram or kosha. These are anatma. So abhimana with anatma. Anatma abhimanaha. That is avidya. So therefore ahankara. How this ahankara can be atma? It cannot be. Iti uktatvat. It is said in the Swatma Nirupanam. Then from the next line we have to read tasyapi. Tasya api ajnanakalpitatvam मनोरूप उपाधि वशात् विकारात्मं च गौणं वक्तुं शक्यम् तथा च आनंदकोश प्रवृत्ति विज्ञानमय मनोमय प्राणमय अन्नमयांतान् बन्धान् स्वस्वरूप साक्षात्कारात् प्राक् आत्मत्वेन मन्यमानान् स्वस्वरूप अवबोधेन मोक्तुं पुनः तत्र यथा अहंता न स्यात् तथा त्यक्तुं बाधितुम् इत्यर्थः यागिच्छा सा मुमुक्षुता स्वस्वरूप अवबोधे हि यत्र तु अस्य सर्वात्मैभाभूत् तत्केनकं पश्येत् इति श्रुत्या स्वव्यतिरिक्तस्य कस्यापि भान अभावेन कोश पंचकात्मक बंध निवृत्ति अत्यंतम इति भावः. We'll see the meaning. Tasyapi ajnana kalpitatvam. Tasyapi, the person experiences ananda in the deep state being identified with anandamaya kosha. Anandamaya Kosha Rupinaha Ahankarasya. That is Tasya. Tasya referring to Ahankara. Ahankaraha Jivaha Bhokta Jivaha. When Jiva is Bhokta, enjoyer, experiencer of Sukam, Bhokta, enjoyer. Any enjoyment. Sukham is available in the deep sleep state, Sushupti Avastha. What about in the waking state? In the waking state, when you enjoy a dish, what you like, there is Ananda. But there are gradations of Ananda. There are the degrees of happiness. Priya, Moda, Pramoda. And one more word is Ananda. Ananda is the Swarupa of our Atma. Whereas Priya, Moda, Pramoda, these bring about happiness by about by the vastu, by the objects, what you love. You have love for an object, Priya. When you think of an object, you get happiness. And when you get that, it is now with you, you see that there is happiness, greater happiness. When you enjoy that, there is still more happiness. Pramoda. So remembering Rasagulla, there is happiness. When you have Rasagulla in your hand, there is increased happiness. The same Rasagulla, when it becomes one with you, the subject object fusion, there is Pramoda. So that experience, who experiences the Jiva. So Jiva Bhokta, that is Anandamaya Kosha. Ahankara, Anandamaya Kosha. In the deep sleep state, where there are no objects of enjoyment, but still the Jiva experience Ananda. Because there is because of Abhimana with Anandamaya Kosha, there is happiness. But that happiness is only a lesha, a semblance of the real Ananda, Ananda Swarupa of Atma. It is not the experience of Atma there, it is only a semblance of the nature, the happiness, the Ananda of Atma. Why we say? Because avidya is there in Sushupti Avastha. Ajnanam is there. Therefore, it is not a real Ananda. Ananda is Atma only. Irrespective of any states, waking or sleep or dream, Atma is ever Ananda Swarupa. Its Ananda is never limited. It is Ananta. That is why Ananda. Ananta means unlimited, infinite. Atma is never limited by this Shariram. Shariram is like a pot enclosing the space. Space is like Atma. Space is not Atma. Space is like Atma. As a space is enclosed by the walls of the pot, so too this body encloses the all-pervading Atma as it were. Therefore, there are two spaces, pot space and external space, Mahakasha and Gata Akasha. Where is it? Gata Akasha. Gata Akasha, in fact, it is one with Mahakasha, the external space. There is no really pot space. But because of the pot, that is our Shariram, the all-pervading Atma, the all-pervading Atma seems to be limited. The limitations is brought out by the Abhimana with the Sharira Manasangata, this body means sense complex. And when there is Abhimana with the Anandamaya Kosha, Ahankaraha, Anandamaya Kosha Nama, Ahankara iti. Tasya Ahankarasya, that Ahankara is real, no, it is Kalpitam. It is Kalpitam, it is imagined, it is not real. Kalpitam, by what? Ajnanam. Ajnanena Kalpitam, Ajnana Kalpitam, Ajnana Kalpitatva, Ajnana Kalpitam, Ajnana Kalpitasya Bhavaha, Ajnana Kalpitatvam, Tasya Ahankarasya, Ajnana Kalpitatvam. It has a status of being Kalpita, imagined on what? On Atma. And Manorupa Upadi Manorupa upadivashat vikaratvam. Manorupa, Manorupam. Manaha, Manaha is mind. Mind which is the upadi. So, Manorupa upadi vashat vikaratvam. Cha gaunam bhaktum shakyam. Gaunam bhaktum shakyam, katayitum shakyam. Gaunam is secondary, not mukyam. Vikaratvam is parivartana shilatam. It is subject to, because of the upadi. Upadi, the word cannot be translated. Upadi is upadi. It has a technical definition, upadi. Upa samipe stitva sriyan gunan anyatra adadati taha upadihi. Upadi can be explained with an example. Like there is a crystal. Crystal is colorless. A red hibiscus flower placed near the crystal. Then the crystal appears to be red. So, upa samipe stitva. The red hibiscus being placed closer to the crystal offers its guna to the colorless crystal, as it were. That is what upadi. Similarly, Atma is like a crystal. Because of this Shariramana Sangata, as it were placed near the Atma, therefore these attributes are transferred to the Atma. Therefore, mind is upadi. Because of the upadi, the Atma which can never be associated with Anatma, now there is marriage between the two. This is what Granthi, Avidya Granthi, Chitta Jada Granthi. And therefore there is Vikaratvam. There is change. Change is not for the Atma, but change is attributed to Atma. That is why a person says, I grow, I become old, I die. All this for the body, not for the Atma. Because of the Upadi vashat, Vikaratvam, Gaunam Vaktum Shakyate, Ajnana Kalpitatvam, Vikaratvam Cha, Gaunam Vaktum Shakyam. So therefore this Gaunam Vaktum Shakyam, Ahankarasya Gaunatvam. Ahankarasya Gaunatvam. The nature of Gaunam is the nature of Ahankara, the nature of ego. Ahankarasya Gaunatvam Vaktum Shakyam. Therefore, this Ahankara, the sense of individuation, changes. Now it is Bhokta, then Karta. So this Ahankara, Parivartana, Shilaha Ahankaraha. Then Tatacha Anandamaya Kosha Pravritti, Vijnanamaya, Manomaya, Pranamaya, Annamaya, Antan, Bandhan. So Bandha is Pasha, which is starting from Anandamaya Kosha up to Annamaya. Anandamaya Kosha to Annamaya. These koshas will be explained by Acharya in detail later. Just enough to know there are 5 koshas. The same Shariram looked upon, either can be looked upon as 3 Shariram or 5 koshas. The body, mind, sense complex. So therefore, these are the bandhan. These are the pasha bandha. Therefore, Swarupa Sakshat Karatrak. Before the arising of knowledge, Swarupa Sakshatkara means Swaswarupa Sakshatkara means knowledge. Brahma Sakshatkara, Atma Sakshatkara, Atma Anubhuti, before the rise of the knowledge of Atma, Trak, Atmatmaya Manyamanan. This is Atma iti. That is Abhimana with this kosha is that Abhimana. Therefore, this this is Atma. That is Annamaya kosha is Atma. Pranamaya kosha is Atma. Manomaya kosha is Atma. Vijnanamaya kosha is Atma. Anandamaya kosha is Atma. Iti Manyamanan. At different times there is Abhimana with different koshas. Therefore, this is Atma, this is myself. And with regard to Annamaya kosha, there is strong Abhimana because it is stula, it is gross, and therefore there are gross experience of sense objects. Therefore, it is gross, very stula. That is why in Taittiriya Upanishad, the Panchakosha Viveka, discriminating and understanding the nature of these koshas. Each kosha is taken to be Atma and each one dismisses one by one, finally arriving at Atma. In Taittiriya Upanishad, the Brahmananda Valli, Bhrigur vai Varunihi, Varunam Pitaram Upasara, the Bhrigu Varunam Pitaram he approaches the father, then asks what is Atma. Then he says, this Annamaya is Atma. Then Annamaya is Atma, he satisfied, the answer goes back. But at that moment he is satisfied, but he was not. He had a doubt, how can this Annamaya be Atma? Because this Annamaya continues to change, not the same. There is birth, there is death, and then between there are changes happening to the Shariram. How can this be Atma? Therefore he comes back. Again, then he says, Pranamaya is Atma. So like that one kosha is taken and dismissed. It cannot be Atma. Dismissal. This is the progress. Slowly understanding each, because there is Abhimana with this kosha, therefore each one to be dismissed. Therefore, before the Atma Sakshatkara, before the knowledge of Atma, these koshas are taken to be Aham Yete Koshaha iti. Atma Buddhya Grigyamanan Manyamanan. These koshas are me at different times, the different koshas, there is Abhimana. Therefore, Swaswarupa Bodhena, by Swarupa Jnanena Yeva, Swarupa Avagamanena Yeva, Moktum, Vimochayitum, therefore Punaha Tatra, Aganta Nasyat. So being free from the Abhimana with this kosha by knowing the true nature of myself, and after that, again, this Ahanta means Abhimana with them. Aham iti. Kosheshu aham iti buddhi na jayeta. Ahanta na syat. There is no Abhimana with the kosha. I am this kosha iti na syat. Tata tyaktum bodhitam artaha. Tyaktum, that giving up is only knowing that they are not real. That is what tyaga is. Mityatvena. Nischetum baditum tyaktum baditum. Tyaktum baditum ityartaha. Giving up this Abhimana with the kosha is what? It is by knowledge. Giving up is negating the Abhimana with the kosha. Because these are bandha hetu, these are bandhan. That icha, the desire to be free from the bondage, free from Abhimana of this kosha by Swaswarupa Avabodha, that is what? Moksha. That desire is what is called Mumukshuta. Swaswarupa Bodhehi, by Swaswarupa Avabodhe, by knowing this. Avabodhana means understanding, knowing, recognizing. Swaswarupa Avabodhehi, yatra tu asya sarvam atma vibhut tat kena tam pashyet. This Shruti is from Brihadaranyaka Shruti. So, Jnani sees Atma everywhere. For him, this Drishya Prapancha, the world, and this Panchakosha, these are not seen because everything is Atma. There is no Dvaitam for Jnani. It is Advaita Atma. Everything is Atma. Everything is Atma is including this Shariram also. Therefore, then Kaha Kampashit, who will see what? There is no Karta, there is no Karma, there is no other Karakas. Everything, because everything is Atma. All the Karakas, Kartarka, Karta, Karma, Karana, everything is Karaka Upamardhanam. Everything is that is destroyed by the knowledge of Atma. The sense of individuation gone. Only when the sense of individuality is there, there is object, there is Karana, there is Sampradana, Ityadi Karaka. In terms of grammar, we can say Karaka, or subject object division is gone. There is no duality. Everything is Atma. Then who will see what? When there is another thing you can see. When there is no second thing, when you alone, everything, then who will see what? Therefore, Atma Jnanena, this Panchakoshatmaka Bandha, Atyantika Rupena Nivartate. That's what Acharya says. Therefore, Shrutiya, by this Shruti, Brigadarnika Shruti, Swavyatiriktasya, other than oneself, Tasyapi Bhana Abhavena, other than oneself, there is nothing. Everything is myself. This Jagat is myself. Jagat means it includes everything. Everything is myself. There is no Veda Buddhi. There is no Dvaita Buddhi. There is no sense of duality. Because the person enjoys a vision of oneness. Therefore, Kasyapi Bhana Abhavena, Dvaita Bhana Abhavena, absence of Dvaitam. Then Kosha Panchakatmaka Bandha Nivrittihi Atyatam. Then there will be complete removal of this Bandha, this Kosha Panchatmaka Bandha, this Panchakosha, 5 koshas, which are the one which binds. Therefore, there is complete nivritti, removal, cessation due to jnanam. Iti bhavaha, that is the meaning. At the time of ignorance, ajnana kale, a person identifies himself with annamaya, pranamaya, manomaya, vijnanamaya, anandamaya. Aham iti. That is what bhranti avidya, as we saw in Panchadashi, avidya. Then giving up the mamatam, the sense of minus, mine, and na aham ime koshaha iti swarupa avabodhena, avabodham, that swarupa avabodham, the knowledge of the one, the knowledge of oneself, true knowledge of oneself, the desire to gain that is what mumukshutvam. That is the definition Acharya gives here, mumukshutvam. The mumukshutvam, the mumuksha should lead to the removal of the sense of bondage with this kosha by giving rise to the knowledge of oneself. That is mumukshutvam. It's a clean, beautiful definition which cannot be improved upon. Then, so mumukshutvam talked about if a person is a mumukshu, tibra mumukshu, then moksha is not far away from that person. So, based on the tivratvam of mumukshutvam, the mumukshuta can be classified. And that is what Acharya does in the next shloka. And here Acharya, commentator gives a long introduction. I will read and explain and then we will read the shloka. Shankaracharya, he classifies his mumukshutvam into 3 types. What are they? Here the Acharya says, Iyam tavat mumukshuta trivida manda madhyama pravriddha cha iti. Mokshasya nitya sukha swarupatve api samsarika vasana vasitanta karananam moksha ichcha eva durlabha. So, iyam, Iyam is Srilinga because Mumukshuta is Srilinga. Therefore, Iyam, Yesha, Yesha Tavat, Eva Yesha Tavat, Mumukshuta, that Moktum Icha, Mokshasya, Abhilashaha Icha, Mokshoha Bhavaha, Mumukshuta, the status of being desirous of freedom, that Mumukshuta, Trividad, Triprakara, of three types. Trividha, Treha Vidaha, Asyaha Sa Trividaha. Three types. One is Manda, all are Srilinga because Mumukshuta is Srilinga, therefore Manda, Madhyama, and Pravruddha. Manda, Manda means dull, it is weak. That desire for freedom is weak. Manda, Shitila. Then Madhyama. Madhyama is Madhyama, Madhyama Stariya. It is moderate. Madhyama. And Pravruddha is Tibra, very intense desire. So the desire, dull, moderate, and intense. Iti, that Icha, the desire for moksha, can be classified into these three. Mokshasya, mokshaha, kaivalyasya, mokshaha, that is for freedom, nitya sukha swarupatve api, which is of the nature of sukham, and it is nitya, always. Why we are talking about moksha? Because we seek happiness. Unfortunately, not knowing that we are the very meaning of the happiness, we seek that happiness outside in the form of acquiring things, objects, persons, relationships, situations, etc. Misplaced search. We are searching for the happiness outside. Having lost some, having lost the ring in a particular place, I am searching for the ring in some other place. Similarly, here there is no loss. The happiness is there, which cannot be lost. But looking for that happiness in objects and things and people, misplaced search in the form of gaining artha, kama, and dharma. Therefore, not knowing that moksha, which is myself, that is atma, is ever muktaha, that is nitya, nityanandaha atma, not knowing that nitya sukha swarupatve api, despite of the nature of happiness, which is permanent, samsarika vasana vasitanta karanana, samsarika, samsarika is samsare bhavaha samsarikaha. It's a Tadita word. Samsara becomes samsarika. Vasana. Vasana means that impression, that the vasana, that is because of these habitual tendencies, desires, that vasana, whatever it is created in the mind. And because of that, the antakarana, the mind, which are conditioned by the desires for the objects of the world. Samsarika vasana. The mind which are conditioned by the worldly desires. Samsarika vasana, vasana, vasita antakaranena, vasita. Vasita, vasita meaning vasitanta karananam. So, vasita means conditioning. So, the antakaran, the mind, which is conditioned by the samskara, the vasana of this samsara. So, vasita, dushita, antakarananam. Dushita, antakarana mind, which is conditioned, dushita, which is polluted, you can say antakarananam. For those minds which are polluted by the desires for the samsarika, worldly desires, the mind polluted by the desire for worldly things. Moksha icha is durlabha. Desire for moksha will be difficult. Moksha icha durlabha bhavati. Because mind is conditioned to go after worldly desires. Therefore, moksha icha is durlabha. Adhyatma shravana kale jata sa na karyam adadhati. Adhyatma shravana kale. That is, at the time of Adhyatma Shastra Shravanam, listening to the Shastram, the Shastram, the scriptures, and dealing with Atma. Adhyatma is Atma. Atmaniti, Adhyatmam. Adhyatma Shastram, the scriptures which deals with the with Atma. The matter of study is Atma. At the time of listening to the Adhyatma Shastra, that is Upanishads, Vedanta, Jata, that born, Sajata, that which is born, Utpanna, that Icha, at the time of listening to Shastram, we get desire. The desire arises. I want to be free. Because Shastram instigates that desire for moksha. But that desire, na karyam adadhati, that desire will not bring about the desired result. Karya means palam. Palam in the form of samsara nivritti. Samsara nivritti rupam karyam. The desire is there. The desire should take me further forward across this ocean of samsara, but it doesn't do. It cannot generate karyam na adadati. It cannot produce this result. It means the desire which arises at the time of Shravana Kala, having listened to the Shastram, the person becomes free from this bombardments of this worldly issues and problems. Then there arises desire. That desire is manda. That mumukshutvam is manda. That time the desire for freedom arises. That is manda. Yada purushaha shravanantara jata vivekena vishayeshu samsarikeshu doshan darsham. Then yada, when the purushaha means sadhakaha here, when the seeker, shravanantara jata vivekena, the viveka which is born after listening to the Shastra. So Shastra says Atma is there, Anatma is there, and Atma, Anatma, Viveka, holding on to Anatma, a person suffers, giving up the Abhimana with Anatma, and knowing that Aham Atma, the person becomes free. So therefore, there is Atma, Anatma, Viveka. So after listening to the scriptures, Shastram, this Viveka arises, or Viveka could have been there even before also. But at this time of Shravanam, this Viveka getting strengthened. So Vedanta Shravanasya Paschat Utpanna Nitya Nitya Vastu Vivekena. Therefore, the person Vishayeshu, Samsarik Vishayeshu, in worldly things, objects, not only objects, relationship, persons, everything. Doshan, defects. Doshan, darsham, punaha drishtva. Darsham is a word, namal pratyaya, which is avyaya. Darsham, drishtva, ityartha. Punaha drishtva, seeing again and again the defects. What are the defects? As we saw, these are atrupti, this is bandhakatvam, dukkha mishutatvam, bandhakatvam. These are the defects with the objects, with the worldly objects. Other than Atma, whatever you gain, whatever you enjoy in the world or you gain, these are endowed with these three defects. One is it is mixed with the pain. Other one, it will not give you complete enjoyment. And it will bind you, asking for more and more. Therefore, punaha, seeing the dosha, the defects. For that, the person has to be viveki. And viveka generated by listening to the shastram. Tatra vairagyam. Then there, vairagyam, that anasakti, the trishna, Vitrishna, Labhya, having gained Vairagyam, Vidivata Sanyasya Sarva Karmani, having then Vidivata in keeping with the Shastram, Shastrokta Vidina, Anusrutya, a person giving up all the karmas, giving up Sanyasya, Sanyasam Srikrta, Sanyasam Srikrtavan, Sarva Karmani, whether it is Lokika Karmani or Vedika Karmani, all the karmas he gives up. Why does he gives up all the karma take to sannyasa? Because he wants all the time for himself to enter into Shastra Vicharartham. That is the purpose. Atma Tattvasya Vicharam Kartu Vicharartham. Therefore, then he cannot do by himself. Therefore, Guru Pasadanam. Guru Ho Samipe Gatva Sadana Guru Pasadanadu. Gatva Shastra Shravanam. Completely committing to oneself to the Shastram, approaching a Guru and studying Shastra Adhyayanam, Pravartate. A person engages into the inquiry of the Shastram properly. Tada Adhyatma Shravana Kale Jata. Then, at the time of Adhyatma Shravan, listening to the Shastra, Adhyatma Shastram, the Shastram dealing with Atma Jnana Pratipadaka Grantha. That is Adhyatma Shastra. Shastra which reveals the knowledge of Atma. That is Adhyatma Shastra, Shravana Kale, listening to that. Jata, Utpanna, what is, that time what is born is Tatkalikam, Tatkalik, Tatkalikyam Eva, Mumukshuta, Manda iti, Nama Arha eva, Madhyamatvam Prapnoti. Then Tatkalik is, that is temporary, Tatkalikam. So, Tasmin Kale Bhava Tatkaliki. So, that Manda, what is there? That Manda Vairagya, Dal Vairagya. Now that Manda Vairagya, Namarha Eva, Nama Arha Eva. Now it desires to get the name Madhyama. So now that Vairagyam, the Mumukshuta, that Icha becomes slowly upgraded to Madhyama. So, Manda is in the very beginning. Listening to the Shastra, person is inspired, that is Manda. Now he commits himself after having seen dosha again and again in the worldly pursuit. Therefore, a person takes to sannyasa ashrama, approaching the teacher, and commits himself to only Shastra Shavanam. Then the Tatkalikyam Mumukshita Manda, what was there? Now it slowly transforms into Madhyamatvam, Madhyamavastham, Prapnoti. So becomes Madhyama Mumukshita. That is Madhyama only. So what level we are, we have to examine whether our Mumukshuttam is Manda or Madhyama or Pravruddha, Tibra. What is Tibram? Yata Yata Tibram Vairagyam. Yata Yata Tibra Vairagyam. Tibra Vairagyam Manascha Upashantam Samadhitsati. So Yata Tibram Dridam. Tibram is intense. Intense Vairagya. Vairagya should be intense. Vairagya is Iha Amutra Palabhoga Viraga. Complete dispassion for the enjoyment of the objects of this world or that world. It means understanding this will not give me happiness what I really seek. Because the seeker is happiness. Therefore, one has to turn inwards. Therefore, giving up all these external pursuits, understanding the limitation, that is what Vairagya is. So when that Vairagya becomes Tibra, and mind also Upashantam, mind is relatively becomes tranquil, calm, Upashantam, Dosharagitam, Ragadvesha Ragitam, and Samadhit Sati, mind is now the mind which enjoys the capacity to being absorbed in absorption, that is Samadhi, Dhyana Avastha, Ekagram. Samadhit Sati, Samadhim Kartum. Samadhit Sati Adhatum, this Ananta. Adatum kartum icha. Samaditsati. The desire to being absorbed in oneself. That is samadhi. And also guruhu cha aspin prasidati. Guru also, Acharya also is pleased with such a disciple. Asmin is etadrishe shishya yogya shishya prasidati, because the person has got vairagya, tivra vairagya. He has got sadhana chatushtaya sampatti. And therefore Guru also prasidati. Guruhu prasidati. Kshipram ayam. Kshipramayam taratu bhavabdim iti. Therefore he also blesses. Shikrameva ayam yeshaha, this my shishya, let him cross his ocean of samsara. Iti Guru also wishes. Because Guru is happy having seen such a yogya shishya. Tada, then Purushaha Nitya Sukha Swarupa Mokshat Anyata na kamagete. Then the Shishya, the Sadhaka, is the real Sadhaka Adhikari. It doesn't desire anything other than moksha. Mokshat Anyat. Moksha is the only priority. There are no other priorities. At the time of Madhyama Vairagya, there are many priorities and moksha may be at the top. But other priorities are there. At the time of Manda, other priorities are, so many priorities are there, and one priority is moksha also. So moksha is somewhere in the list. You have to see the list, long list. Among the 100 list, maybe it occupying the 100th one. But Vairagya, Mokshutvam is that is Manda Mokshutvam. When the same Mokshutvam occupies the first place in Madhyama, when it becomes Tivra, there are no other priorities, only Mamukshuta alone will be there. That is Tivra Vairagya, Tivra Mamukshutvam. So that this Adhikari, in fact, this is an ideal Adhikari. So the Guru also wishes, let this, my disciple, cross this ocean. Bhavabdim, this Samudra Saram. Taratu Gachatu. So let him cross this ocean of samsara. Iti. Therefore, that Purusha, that Sadhaka, Uttama Adhikari, who has Tivra Mumukshutvam, he doesn't desire for anything other than moksha. So Nitya Swarupa Mokshat, Nitya, that is Shashvata, Sukha is Ananda Swarupa Mokshat Muktehe, Anyat Kimapina Kamayate Vanchati, doesn't desire. And also, he cannot tolerate any delay. Tatra Vilambanam cha na sakate iti. I cannot wait anymore. I want moksha. Na sakate sodum na shaknoti immediately. Therefore, he has got intense desire. Pravruddha mumukshuhu. The beautiful word. Tivra mumukshuhu. Pravruddha mumukshuhu means Tivra mumukshuhu. He is the mukhya adhikari. He is the qualified person. Bhutva kshipram labate. In no time, kshipram is immediately. Jatiti. Jatiti labate. Palam. What palam? Moksham. Atma jnana rupam. Moksha palam. Moksha, which is in the form of the knowledge of Atma, he gains immediately. Mandeti iti Acharya says, let us read the shloka. This is a beautiful introduction. The introduction itself explains the meaning of the shloka. So the three types of Mokshuttam Acharya enumerates here. Manda Madhyamarupapi Vairagyena Shamadhina.
मन्दमध्यमरूपापि वैराग्येण शमादिना
Prasadena Guru Seyam Pravriddha Suyate Phalam.
प्रसादेन गुरो सेयं प्रवृद्धा सूयते फलम्
Manda Madhyama Rupa Api Vairagyena Shamadina Prasadena Guroho Prasadena. You have to connect like that. Shashti Vibhakti is later. Then Guroho Prasadena Sa Iyam Seyam. That is, Sa is Mumukshuta Pravriddha Phalam Suyate. So, Manda Madhyama Rupa. At the time of the beginning of the spiritual journey, Arambe, Manda Bhavati Mokshuta. Then it becomes Madhyama. moderate, against. So Manda Madhyama Rupa api, even though Vairagya is, even though Mumukshutvam is, because Vairagyam also goes with. You should have Vairagyam and Mumukshutvam, these two are important. Then these two other things will fall in place. So Manda Madhyama Rupa, that Mumukshutvam, which is Manda Madhyama, and Vairagyena Shamadhina, even though the Shamita, Mumukshuta is Manda and Madhyama, api means even though, Yadyapi, Vairagyena Vishayeshu, Ayika Amushmika Vishayeshu, Vitrishna is Vairagya, Tena Vairagyena, complete detachment, dispassion. And Shamadhina also, Shamadhina means Shama, Dama, Titiksha, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhanam, all. By that, and also Guroho Prasadena, Guru Kripaya, one has to become a fit patram for receiving the grace of the Guru. Acharyasya Prasadena. Prasada is blessing. Karuna, Anugraha. Then that Mumukshuta becomes Tivra. Sa Mumukshuta, Sa plus Iyam Pravriddha Muktivra Bhavati. Tena eva suyate, palam janayati, palam dadati. That your mumukshutvam alone, you will give the result. Not Manda and Madhyama. If it is Manda, it has to be upgraded to Madhyama. Then it Madhyama to Tivra. When the mumukshutvam is Tivram, then the Tivra mumukshutvam alone will give the result in the form of the freedom from the samsara through Atma Swaswarupa Avabodha, by the knowledge of Atma oneself, Atma iti. We will see further the meaning of the shloka and the commentary next class. Om Purnamadav Purnamidham Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Dhanyavadaha.
धन्यवादः जी।
धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद
धन्यवाद
Dhanyavadaha.
धन्यवाद जी।